Good morning and welcome to your March Chamber Business Breakfast. Special thanks to our sponsors, Alamos CPO, which is Community Partnerships Office, Triad, and Del Norte Credit Union. They make it all possible. We also want to thank our vendors. If you like the food, it's from the Food Co-op. If you don't like the food, it's from someplace in Santa Fe. Our coffee vendor is Ruby K's. What else? Oh, special thanks to our venue, Sala. If you have to do, or if you need to do an event, Sala can be your best friend. With Patty Burnside as the event coordinator, you cannot go wrong. We also want to call out our friend Jean Goudreau from PAC 8. She is recording our meeting for us this morning for inclusion in the library's business portal. The Eva, the librarian, is putting together resources for the business community. We're going to have a series of videos there. So, FYI. This morning we're fortunate to have Chamber member Beverly Hughes as our presenter. We're going to talk about succession planning and a little bit about how to buy or sell a business, mostly how to sell your business and retire from your business. This morning, I want to introduce Beverly Hughes. She's a professional certified coach and owns Empowered Pathways Coaching in Santa Fe. She's educated in the creative arts and started her career with 7 years in that field. She's also a former long-term executive in a Fortune 500 technology company with over a decade in sales, finance, and management, including leadership. With her unique background, she supports business and personal clients in navigating growth and change to improve their results. Her past and present clients include Nike, Xerox, Christus Health, Heritage Trust Company of New Mexico, and many individuals running small to mid-sized businesses in New Mexico and across the country. Beverly does staff retreats, workshops, and trainings on various topics tailored to her clients' needs. And boy, does she tailor. We worked through this presentation together. She was very receptive to making changes just for our community. Please help me in welcoming Beverly Hughes.
Thank you, Sandy. I really appreciate the introduction. How sweet. Thank you all for being here today. I am very excited about making this presentation and being with you because as a business coach, I have a number of clients who have expressed concern about getting their businesses prepared for the day that they would like to exit the business. And their concerns kind of spurred me to do some research on succession planning, how to do it effectively and how to do it more simply, because I have small businesses that I focus on. And it's been an interesting journey, and there's a lot to know about it. So a couple of weeks ago, I did a strategic planning workshop for one of my clients. And in that strategic plan, he had embedded in that plan succession planning. And I knew what was on the agenda, and we opened that up, and there was some discussion around that. And it was very useful, and of course, more to come later on that. But that is the key point here, is that is a great venue to start your conversations with your staff or your partner or whatever in the business about making a plan for the future. And it's so important to plan for the future, and we'll kind of talk about that in the course of this presentation. So how many in here today are owners of small businesses? I'm curious. Show of hands. Okay, good. Welcome. Thank you so much for being here. As a business owner, you do this planning to be prepared kind of for a rainy day, for the ultimate sort of the elephant in the room if you were to have an extended long-term illness that took you out of your business, or let's say you had, or you passed away. You want to make sure your business is completely set up for those that are left behind, the people who are your employees, your business partner, your family, etc. It's so important. And then the happier version of that, if you will, is to plan an exit strategy from your business that is on your terms, so that when you look at the future, you say, well, I have various options that I can participate in here. I can sell my business, and Sandy's going to come up in a little while and talk about selling your business and some really great tips on how to position yourself for that. Another option for you is to have a legacy with your business. And one of my clients currently is looking at that. He's got a storefront in Santa Fe. It's a wonderful business. His daughters work in it. He's in his mid-50s. His daughters are about to go to college. And they love working in the business. So they work there on spring break. They work there in the summer. They love it. It's a real fun business. And so he could leave that business to them and even take a stream of revenue off the business for part of his retirement. And then his children could make a living in it, pass it down to their children if they wanted. So a legacy is another option. And then the other thing could be to monetize the business where you step away at some point, but you've loved the business and you're the chief shareholder in it, so you pull a stream of income for it for your retirement, and you stay tethered to the business. You have a very competent staff running it, you have outstanding leadership running it, and you maybe provide a consultative role. So, and then you just continue, the business lives on, and you're part of it until you're not, until you want to do something different. So those are some of the things that you can look at. As I said, Sandy will come up and do an additional presentation here shortly. And we have a pretty tight agenda, and we want to make sure that we cover all of it for your benefit today. So we'll get started on it right now. Okay, so here's the agenda. Can you all hear me in the back? John, can you hear me back there?
Loud and clear.
Okay, my husband calls me a loud girl. He says, you're a loud girl. So we'll bank on that today. So we're here till 9 o'clock. We're going to cover all the topics of succession planning. This is not a formal training, but I hope that you go away today with enough information to really have a lay of the landscape, okay? All right. So we start today with the question of why have a plan to begin with. Would somebody be willing to share with us why this concept spoke to you enough to be here today? Don't be shy or anything, but can anybody just say, why are you here today? Did you? Yeah.
Sure.
Thank you.
Well, it's actually a little different for me because I'm very involved with a nonprofit. So, but the issue of succession of both the staff and the board is an important issue. So I was hoping to learn some things that apply to other organizations than the regular business.
Perfect. And what's your name?
David.
David, thank you, David, for speaking up about that. So he's with a nonprofit, and they're also concerned about staff succession and board succession. Excellent point, and that will be addressed today.
Sadly, reports of people in my field not planning and preparing and having to shut their doors. Yes. And there's no one to take it over, and they just close it, and that's kind of a sad situation that I want to avoid.
Perfect. And what's your name?
Lisa.
Lisa, thank you, Lisa, for speaking about that. That is another kind of something that I wouldn't have said, and that is really great. Talking about a minefield of not having prepared, and then what happens? You know, my father always said, over-prepare, and then it probably will never happen, or whatever, but then you're set in case it does. And you don't want the business just to have to shut down because you had not prepared. So we're going to absolutely address that today. Thank you, David and Lisa. I really appreciate it. Let's look at two different types of players in a business, to your point, David, who can suddenly leave and affect things pretty dramatically, okay? First, you have anyone in leadership. And I'd like to go back and recognize a client of mine who is here today. She is the president of Heritage Trust Company of New Mexico. Will you just wave your hand to people? Stand up.
Thank you for letting me crash the party.
Stella Peterson is the president of H Trust. And I've been working with H Trust for almost 2 years now in a variety of ways, and so I just want to put a plug in for them. They're 30 years in the business. They set up trusts and manage them for families in New Mexico all over the state, and they also do wealth management for people. So if you end up wanting to talk to Stella while you're here today, it's a great opportunity. So there's two different types of players. There's leadership, and that's what made me think of it. You have your president, you have your CEO, chairman of the board, the founder of the business. Anybody in leadership, if they leave the business suddenly through death or long-term illness, it can really turn your organization upside down. The other people to be aware of that are very critical are the critical roles in your company, okay? So there are people in your company that if they leave, suddenly kind of the wheels come off in your company. Think payroll. That's one person right off the bat. But different people like that, and we'll talk about that. So again, why have a plan? Most people plan for the future. Most of us in here have anything from one to all of these things. You might have a will, you have insurance, maybe long-term care policy for medical, you have a cash fund for emergencies. If the roof on your building at your company needs to be replaced, you want to have some money in the bank to do it, or if you're out for a few months, you want to have those bases covered. And there is a policy, Sandy told me about this and I did a little research on it, it was interesting, and it used to be called key man insurance and now it's called key person insurance. And it's an insurance policy basically for your company, so that if somebody leaves the business, you can cover the costs associated with that, and a number of other things. So there is a handout in your documents that you have about that. It's kind of interesting. So we do this type planning to be prepared. Lisa, just, what you said. You want to be prepared for everything. And succession planning is just another one of these things. My clients had expressed concern about, not having a plan. And so when I learned about it, there were a lot of things that were valuable. Not just to have a plan for the leader to leave, but to have redundancies in your business. That's another thing. And we'll get into that. It's a fringe benefit of doing succession planning, because then you've got somebody trained, cross-trained in most of your key roles that you've got in your company. And then your business needs to be sellable at all times. So it's kind of like your home. If you think about it, you may live in your house for 20 years. You don't replace the furnace, the hot water heater, your appliances, and years march by, you haven't painted in a while, you haven't replaced flooring, and then let's say your spouse dies and you want to downsize and move to a condo or a retirement community or something, and you've got to do all this stuff at once, and it costs a lot of money, and the realtor's on you saying, you got to get this house in shape or it's never going to sell. So your business is similar. And your business, you want to just make sure you stay up with it and you keep up with it. You've got a strategic plan. You're profitable, you've got a good staff, and everything's in as much order as it can be for you, so that if you needed to step away and sell it on your own terms, as Sandy will show, you could get top dollar for the business. Okay? Any questions about any of that so far? Please feel free to chime in on anything that you'd like to ask. Okay? So what are the benefits of having a good succession plan? I said that there was sort of some fringe benefits. Not only do you get a plan in place for if the owner, kind of blows out of the business through some unexpected thing, but you have other things that you can look at as benefits. First of all, what are examples of sudden departures? And David, you talked about this. In the leadership, the chances are the leader is not going to leave the company unexpectedly, okay? But a staff member might leave the company unexpectedly, or a board member. Why might they do it? If you don't count illness or death, what might be another reason somebody could leave? Anybody?
Their spouse has gone somewhere else for a job.
Thank you, that's perfect. Perfect. Yes, that is one reason. What is your first name?
I'm Gillian.
Hi, Gillian. Yep, thank you. Flowers, right? Yep. So their spouse, my husband's been wanting to do this kind of work for 10 years. He got an offer he can't refuse. We're moving to Ohio next week, 2 weeks from now. We got to take it, okay? What's another reason similar to that?
Well, a family member somewhere else suddenly needs your assistance.
Oh.
Mom's fallen.
That is perfect. That is
Something to
perfect.
that effect.
Yes. Thank you, Gillian. And then another one would be, let's say somebody lures your employee away with a higher salary or they decided they're done doing this type of work and they'd always wanted to do this type of work and they ran across an opportunity. And so they might leave you with a very short notice, okay? Having redundancies in every critical role in your company is super important. It helps with stability in your business. Okay? Redundancy can be a bad word, like we've got two people doing the same thing, we don't have enough to pay everybody, we're going to get rid of one of those assignments. But redundancy in the sense that I'm talking is everyone sort of knows how to do another job in the company so that if someone left unexpectedly, you wouldn't be flat out, face down. You would have somebody who could help. We'll talk a little bit more about it. What are those critical roles in your business? Gillian, do you have any employees? How many do you have? You have one? Okay, yeah. Anybody here who has a business have more than one employee? Okay, you guys do. How many do you have?
5.
5. Okay, great. And what's your name?
It's Ken.
Ken. Hi, Ken. What are critical roles? Of those 5 people, which one of them the business would just come to kind of a screeching halt if they were gone suddenly? You. Yeah.
Right, I mean, because I know all of the jobs to an extent, but I don't, not everybody else knows the same amount of each of those positions.
Yep. Yeah.
But everybody's important. That's
Everybody
hard,
is.
especially when you're on such a small scale.
Yeah. That's a really good point. That is a good point. Generally, with critical roles, kind of what we're thinking about, and Heritage Trust has 10 employees, and so different people play different roles, and you think of sort of direct revenue related, so your outside salesperson, your payroll person. Those people come to mind just real quick as you need to have a backup for them or some kind of a game plan in your mind. Any comment on that at all?
Well, I've been learning to do payroll lately, just
Yes.
I'm covered with that, right?
Very good point.
All of my employees are retirement age, so it's a worry of mine.
Yeah, very, very good point. You know what I learned by working with H Trust a couple of years ago is that they have what's called fractional people. Are you guys all aware of this? Fractional, like fractional CFO, fractional HR person. So you don't actually have to have that person on staff all the time and pay benefits and everything. And if you don't have as much need as a big corporation or whatever would, you can contract these people it's a by the hour kind of a thing. And that's good to know about. I thought it was most interesting when I learned of it. The third bullet says retention of your company's knowledge. Is there a strength in having employees with you who've been with you from the beginning and they know the business really well? Right? We love that, don't we? It's really good. I've owned a business before as well. And then a talent pipeline. That's the 4th bullet down. A talent pipeline is where you continuously develop people within your organization and you give them a career path, okay? This supports long-term growth. It also builds morale in the company because when somebody hires on with you, they look at various things like what's the pay, are there benefits, is there flexibility, is it close to home, is the culture there positive and good? And is there a career path for me? Can I find a home in that company and have longevity in that company and go up and move up the ladder? So it's nice to have a leadership pipeline, okay, where you know that there could be people coming up to replace people who are leaving in that company eventually because change is inevitable. So let me ask you guys if you can tell me what kinds of attributes would you look at in your own company for people to have in order to become leaders in your company? What kinds of personality traits do you look for?
Outgoing,
Yes?
people person.
Nice.
They have to write legibly.
They have to what?
Write legibly.
That's funny. That's funny, Gillian. Yes. Yes, David?
Organized. And
Organized.
be able to follow through because a lot of times you are the one person who's the critical path for many things.
Yes.
You have to be able to organize your time and your effort, otherwise you're just going to burn out.
Yes. That's part of leadership, isn't it? You want to have it together. You want to be prepared, you want to be organized, you want to have those kinds of things. Yes. Some of the other things are people who take initiative, people who are dependable, they're reliable, trustworthy, they open your shop in the morning, they close at the end of the day. They go above and beyond routinely, right? They're coming in early, they stay late when it's needed. Those are some other things, and we'll talk even more about this because, again, it's ancillary to the concept of succession planning, is a pipeline within your company for growth and people to be able to come up in the company. Second from the last bullet says less staff turnover and better employee engagement and commitment and morale. This is one of the big things about succession planning. It's part of a bigger picture, and people just have that sense of security. They have a sense of where they're going. You know, when we were talking at the strategic planning meeting we did, Stella had brought up, you know, it's really wonderful to have a 5-year plan. When I worked at a bank, she said, you know, we had a 150-year history in that bank, and we kind of knew what the bank's culture and values and mission and vision was. And in small companies, we don't think a lot about mission and vision. Some of you may, but in really small companies, it's not usually so much about that. But it's good to have it, and it's good to set a new course every year. Like our ship is going ultimately to Barbados, but we're stopping off over here. So that's this year. But ultimately we're going there. And you have a sense as a participant in, a team member, in where the course is charted. And then you get skin in the game, and you feel pride, and you feel connection. How might it affect the value of your business to be prepared? So for succession planning is it's another principle of just being prepared. And how do you think that affects the value of your business? Now, Lisa just left the room, but I'm sure someone in here knows what can happen if you are not prepared to the value of your business. Anyone want to take a stab at it?
Well, I do perishable products, so if I'm not prepared, it dies.
Right. That is a real basic fundamental thing in your business. It really is.
So
It truly
it's really
is.
important that somebody is there to water the plants and do the arrangements and stuff.
Yes.
If we all just bail, all the plants will die. It'll become a really ugly shop fairly quickly.
Yes. So that is very relevant in your business or in a food industry business, anything with perishables. Absolutely. Anything else that comes to mind?
I think you just might scare someone from taking on the business, because presumably they have a choice unless they are, it's a family business that they're going to
Yes.
take on. There's a kind of maybe a responsibility to take on the business, but if it's not that situation, you're going to wonder whether should I stay where I am or should I,
You nailed it. David, you nailed it. There are a number of reasons, Gillian, you are just as right. Think about what happens in the stock market if there's uncertainty. Think about what happens, what it does, what happens to the numbers. It gets volatile, right? If things get uncertain and you don't know where we're going and we don't have answers and we don't know, then it goes like this. So your clients, your staff members, people get cold feet. They're like, what's happening here? Where are we going? I think this business is taking a nosedive. I'm going to get out now. So there's things like that are uncertainty. It makes it unstable. And if a leader leaves, then the staff loses its mooring a lot of times. It's not grounded to anything. And, you know, it can kind of fall apart like that. So you want to, as much as possible, keep things glued together. The other thing that I wanted to just say that's sort of out of left field, and this is in your handout today, is a few things that are important, but you don't think about them. Like Gillian brought up some stuff that you don't think about if you don't have a business that's got perishables in it. But you want to share your passwords with someone so that if you don't show up tomorrow, they can get into the necessary systems and there's someone very trustworthy who holds those. Have a current policies and procedures manual. I do those with people too sometimes. I've done a few of those. Things as simple as an updated annual strategic plan to create meaningful business goals. Okay, so those are just some of the things, and I did put them on a list for you. Okay. Identifying critical roles in your business. We alluded to that just a few minutes ago. You want to distinguish between critical roles and all roles. So yes, all roles are very, very important. Make no mistake, okay? Some have a little bit more impact on your business negatively if they didn't show up tomorrow. So you want to be able to identify between the two. How are you sure you've identified the critical roles? In a small business, you're like, oh yeah, I know who it is. But the bigger it gets, so 10 people, or if you have 15 or 20, it then begins to present some question in your mind. How well would we do if that person? What would the impact be? And these are some questions you can ask yourself to be certain on that. Who handles hot customer service issues? Who knows what to do to solve problems and gets them solved routinely? Who reorders our merchandise? Does this person have a direct influence on revenue generation or protecting our revenue? Is there a high level of specialized knowledge required to do their job? Does it require certifications, or is it just very serious subject matter expertise that only a few have? Is there a high disruption caused by their vacancy? So these are some of the questions you would ask yourself to be pretty clear on that for yourself. Again, in a really small business, it's probably you know who it is. Okay. Do most of you feel like you know who those people would be in your company? Yes. Yes, good, good, good. There are simple tools you can do when you're doing the actual planning of this in the planning portion of succession, the succession planning process. You can take a work chart. You can highlight the first person's name. You can write a couple of names there of who in your company could probably do that job. And if not, they're close enough to it where you could do some development, a little bit of training, a little coaching, and they'd be there. So in payroll, you said you're learning payroll right now. And you know what it entails, and it requires some time, a commitment. So for every position, you would identify who could step into that role easily.
I have a question
yeah.
a bit related to payroll. Maybe it's to you, Ken, specifically. Why not contract with your bookkeeper or and I don't know what you mean by what is meant by payroll. What part of payroll you do versus all the filings or all the time cards?
Right. So some of the businesses will do everything. We work with Dinkle to do part of it, but the payroll is something that we take on. And if I asked someone else to do it, I'd be spending a lot more money than I could do in-house.
Did you get your question answered?
Yeah.
Okay. The next slide is about assessing talent and potential in your company. And to assess a talent for the pipeline that I referred to earlier. Do you remember me saying there would be a leadership pipeline, a talent pipeline? It's kind of the same thing. It's a pathway for people in your company to say, I want to ultimately be a manager here. Ultimately, I might want to be the VP or own the place, you know. And you want to show them a clear path. You don't want it to be a mystery. You can talk about it in their reviews. You can, have open discussions about it. However you want to handle it, there's a variety of ways to do that. But you want there to be a clear path for people to move forward, or their growth can be stunted. People in line for leadership are, and we just talked about what attributes these folks would have, but these are anyone who's regularly demonstrating a high level of drive and ambition. So in your company, if you want somebody to be able to take over, it's not going to be a family legacy, and you want to keep the business alive, or you want to, be prepared for a rainy day of somebody who could take over. Adaptability to change is another one. Excellent communication skills. You talked about something along this line. And emotional intelligence. And the simple version of that is less drama. Right? And all of us, I think, come to work with our baggage. People can be too sensitive, or they can take things personally, or they can be too reactive. We all know the folks who do it. So these are things we grapple with as managers, as leaders, right? And these are what you're looking for, is that maturity level. Strategic thinking, a capacity for learning new things, they're aligned to your company's values. In an ideal world, they dress and act appropriately. So you want to know that they're going to come to work and their shirt's going to be tucked in and their hair's going to be combed and they're going to brush their teeth. Basic stuff like that. But you've probably run into it before if you're a business owner, right? Because you have a lot of change in that world. And all these things can be objectively assessed through regular performance reviews. Does everybody here do performance reviews of some sort, even if you're a really small company? John, do you? I hate to put you on the spot on that.
Most of my people are subcontractors.
Okay,
so-
right.
But, that have been with me for 20 years. So it's, I mean, I try and build everybody up just as a general rule. I come from ranching and gravel mining people, so we're pretty tough folks.
Yeah.
So if somebody makes me mad, they also know.
Yes, yes.
I can convey that pretty clearly, what the problem is, and get through it, but I try and do it with tact, I'm not trying to run anybody off. People
Yeah.
in my organization love me, I would say.
That's great. So you kind of have an understanding, and you do understand, and you're open, and they know when you're not happy, and they know when you are, right?
Yeah, they tend to try and keep me happy.
Yeah. And I think that's also indigenous to the business. You know, in that type business, I was married to a contractor, my college sweetheart. And, you know, I know that business is a little bit different like that. So to what degree you have any kind of reviews where you share with people and you document things over time? You know, these are things that you can share with your employees. You know, this is not an option. This is not optional. This is kind of our value system, and what we want to present to the customer is neat and clean and stuff like that. So that sort of falls in there, how you can objectively assess them on
I
that.
have made that correction a lot of times with my folks, just be sure you look at sharp if you're on my job.
Right?
Because that's, in construction, that can be pretty hard to achieve, especially on a Monday morning.
Yes.
You know, an early Monday morning, having to drive up here and be here by 8 or whatever from now.
Yes.
It's essential.
And would you say you've got a lot of great people that have made that mistake from time to time? So, you know, it's not a full reflection of the person, you know. It's just an opportunity for us. Recognizing diverse talent. You know, there's been a lot of controversy about the diversity and equity programs that are out there. And I will say that it can be as simple as acknowledging you may have a 20-year-old in your business who screams leader. They are wise beyond their years. Okay, they're very mature, and they are able to take control of a situation and manage. Don't overlook that person because they're young. And likewise, you may have a 70-year-old and you have a hardware store, and they worked at Home Depot and they were a lead or a manager at Home Depot. You would love to take advantage of that in your business. So, you know, don't let that kind of thing, that kind of bias limit you. And just keep your mind open. Maybe you've got somebody with blue hair and they're a really great leader too. You know, so I wanted to get that in about diversity on that, just to that extent, okay? All right, developing talent. We've talked about spotting talent in your organization, how to look for potential future leaders, how to open up a pipeline, how to have succession throughout the organization. Where, and we're going to talk a little bit about, you know, job shadowing, and you can make cheat sheets and stuff so other people know how to do certain roles in the company if they leave suddenly. So we're talking about so far spotting talent and bringing them up is what we want to talk about next. How do you help develop future leaders, future managers within your organization? And people who will just take more responsibility and have real skin in the game to do their jobs the way you want them to be doing it, you know, as if they owned it, kind of thing. So some of those things are cross-training and job rotations. Do those things make sense? Do we all kind of have an idea? Cross-training and job rotations, right? That gives you redundancy. What do leadership development programs look like in a small company? I can tell you what they do not look like, which is when I was in corporate America, we would get in a conference room when I first started at Xerox for a month, 5 days a week. with our backpack and our spiral notebook like a college kid and learned how to be a salesperson, a professional salesperson. And then every year we would go to Leesburg, Virginia, down the street from the CIA on a big property campus environment, and they would teach you everything you need to learn about being a manager or selling printing systems or whatever it was. People don't have the money for that or the time for that in a small company. You know you don't. So what you do is usually one-on-one kind of attention and training. You mentor with someone who's already doing a similar role or a role they're taking, shows them how to do it. If you need coaching, I just went through a period of time, it was all of last year, where they foresaw that they wanted their CFO in a pretty large company to become a COO. So they go from finance related to operational. And it's a pretty big difference. I know you work for the county, don't you? Yeah, so you know kind of the ropes on this kind of thing. So they wanted her to gain some maturity in a lot of levels, and she was also not a real people person, but they still had her pegged for the job. She's doing it now, and she's doing a really great job. So I coached her because I do that kind of work. And so just a little plug on that is, as Sandy said, I tailor my offerings. I have an array of services I offer, and I tailor them because of my background to whatever the client needs at the time, as long as it's in business, because I had over 10 years each in professional sales, finance, including managing the P&L of the business of 2 states. I did the KPI indicators, you know, kind of the scoreboard of the business. How are we doing? Are we firing on all cylinders? How to get it in shape if it's not. And then I did management and leadership. So I help people with really whatever you need in terms of business, and I really customize it. So it's not cookie cutter at all. So I can do mentoring and coaching. If you do succession planning and you need help, and you're like, I don't have time to do that, can you step in and help with it? I am happy to. Stretch assignments and job shadowing, that's that 4th bullet in the upper section. Any questions about that? Stretch goals, stretch assignments. You start giving them more to do, and you see if they can handle it.
Yeah, I wanted to mention on leadership development. For a small company, it doesn't have to be a leadership program. It can be small things like a small project and building confidence in that person you've identified, letting them take on roles, big and slowly, bigger.
Yes.
I've seen that done successfully.
Yes, I love that input. And it's kind of, you know, we say when you're overwhelmed to chunk things down into little pieces, and then you lose the overwhelm. Well, when you're growing like that, so that that's not overwhelming, you give it in doses of a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more. Perfect. Thank you, Sandy. Job shadowing. I was in my doctor's office the other day. The doctor came into the room, and he was with somebody, and he said, you know, so-and-so is here. He's a new PA, and he's shadowing me. Is it okay if he's in here? And I said, absolutely, you know. Or you'll see it in certain jobs. You'll see people standing next to the regular person, and they're just learning how to do it. Nothing wrong with that. Career pathing through the organization. Again, I mentioned showing a clear path, showing opportunities that could exist for growth within your company. Also, I know that people use things like the Colby Index and Myers-Briggs and things like that to say, well, this person would be great for this job. And you can make suggestions like that and ask them in a review session. Would you have any interest in doing that? You seem especially skilled for that kind of thing. Any questions on that or so far? All right. Creating your own plan. I'm going to say at this point, with the number of slides we have left, that it's kind of like when you're in an airplane and they come over the speaker and they say, get prepared for landing because, you know, raise your seat to the upright position and we're going to come around and collect the trash. We have about 4 more slides in my piece before we hand off to Sandy about selling your business. And I'm going to try to connect the dots right now and wrap up what we've talked about so far. You can create your own plan. And I have a structured plan format in here. It's pretty basic, okay? But you can always call me if you have any questions about it. And if you need help, I can help you. But otherwise, you can also do it on your own, okay? And this is not a sales pitch for me to sell succession planning. I am available if you need me, but you can also do it on your own. The plan components are to identify the critical positions in your organization, no matter how small it is. It's never too small, and it's never too early to start, okay? And it's simple to do, really much more simple than you would know. And identify future leaders in your company. Discuss career path with everyone, and make sure that they know there's a clear path forward if they want to grow in the company. Create employee development plans inside the standard review process. It's very easy, and in so doing, you will create redundancy in your business, and people will all be trained, cross-trained on one other job. Even if, I said this earlier, even if they make a cheat sheet and they laminate it and it's at their desk, it's in their bullpen or wherever on their desk, and then if they don't show up, it's like, can you take over so-and-so's job today? I know you know a little bit about that because you've trained on it. Set a timeline and a schedule to have a main plan done, and be sure you document that. That again is easy to do. I'm the queen of documentation. Some people are not, but it's easy. Okay. Monitoring and adjusting, we're not going to go into this slide at all, but I am going to say that every process you do in your company should be monitored to say, was it worth it? Are we tracking along? Is it making a difference? Do we know what we're doing? Are people engaged? Okay? And then make adjustments and be flexible. You know, always be flexible. And the common challenges that you'll face are resistance to change in general. Why do we have to do this? I don't want to train him, you know, or whatever. So you'll get resistance and lack of time or resources. You know, that's why I suggested cheat sheets, because some people may say, I don't really have time to do any of this. But you can do it on a limited basis. In summary, basically you want to look at having a plan, some kind of plan, no matter how minimal it is. If you didn't come back to work tomorrow, what needs to be attended to? What needs to be in place? What information needs to be stored on file, and people know where it is, and people know what to do and what the next steps are. It helps you prepare for business leadership and critical role changes within your organization, and it helps the business continue to operate smoothly if you are not there at some point, and maintain value through those changes. The other thing it helps with are mitigating risks, including legal. We could probably talk to you, Stella, about things that could happen if all of a sudden you or Fred were not in the business one day. Because there are many businesses that have a lot of legal implications to them if the owner is not there anymore. It supports your strategic business goals that you have long-term this year and 5 years out. It reduces staff turnover. It gets people more bought in. They have more internal promotion opportunities. It enhances their engagement and their morale. And succession planning is even important for a small company. As I said before, especially important. Apple, Starbucks, Microsoft, all these people are famous for, you know, how well they did succession planning when they had change over at the top. But we're not large companies in here. We're small businesses. And you still need a plan. And it can be very simple, okay? And then one more slide for me, and it's key takeaways. If you take nothing else, hopefully you take some things with you as we go today. You want to plan proactively, just like when you get a will, just like when you find a financial planner to help you with retirement. You want to have a bank set up or a credit union set up so where you can start socking away money to where it builds up and saves you on a rainy day. These are all planned. So most of you are already planning. This is just one more little thing to throw in the mix. Integrate it with your overall workforce and staffing plan. So piggyback it on something you might already kind of have a framework for. Set a timeline to get your plan made And my document that's in the package talks about that. I did a plan in here that said these are the main components of what you need to do if you want to do a real simple one. And if you started it in March, you could have it done by the end of the year with very little time invested in it. So take a look at that if you have interest in doing this, and you'll see it's not as hard as you may think. Start by choosing just one role in your company, maybe yourself. And just say, what would happen if I left? What all do I need to have in order? And then the thing about it though, and I was thinking about this last night, is that it's easy to scale. And so if you're going to do it for yourself, you may as well do it for you. And if you have 5 employees, you could go ahead and do it for 1 or 2 other roles that are super significant, right? And then if while you're at it, you just do all of them, then everybody's got a backup and they go on vacation and there's just no blip on the screen. It's just smooth sailing, right? So with that, I'm going to hand it off to Sandy, and she's going to share some important tips on selling your business and so much more. And if we have time at the end, we could circle back and do some Q&A and any comments you might want to add for the benefit of others. But if we don't end up with time, I do want to say thank you so much for being here.
How does the slide work?
Okay, the bottom arrow closer to the red advances it.
Okay, this will be short and sweet. Some of these things I'm sure you already know, but just to kind of highlight, generally it's suggested about 3 years to prepare to sell your business. You want to maximize your sales price, of course, because who wants to buy a business whose revenues are going down? So there are specific steps also in selling a business. Maybe I don't want to yell at everybody who knows. Number 1, make sure all your tax payments are up to date and you're in good standing with all regulatory agencies. Number 2, clean up any liens, legal judgments, partner or venture capital disputes. Try not to undertake any new legal action. I think that goes without saying, but I'm saying it anyway. 3, hire a professional if you need to help ramp up your marketing efforts so that you can show an upward trend in total revenues over these 3 upcoming years. Number 4, research the industry multiple to apply to your annual revenue for your sector. Now, okay, that sounds like gobbledygook, but honestly, your local SBDC has access to a tool called Vertical IQ, and they track this information for every industry. They can tell you, oh, you're a machine shop, your starting point is 0.5 times your annual revenue. And it's that way for lots of industry sectors. That information is available, and that's the industry standard. Consider, do you own the property where you're conducting your business? If that property is part of the sale, bravo. If it isn't, you've got a lot to think about and how you're going to package your business attractively. Make sure you own your logo and all copyrights to it. And by that I mean if someone created the logo, make sure you have in writing from them that you own all the rights. Do you regularly conduct physical inventories? Are you selling recipes, customer lists, proprietary processes, or intellectual property? And I'm sorry, but the name of your company is worth less than you think. Unfortunately, we all think goodwill is worth this huge factor, but you need to be realistic about that too. Have you thoroughly documented through an SOP manual how to do what you do as a company? And we talked about a procedures manual in your succession planning that Beverly talked about. How old is the equipment in your facility? Old equipment, as you know, depreciates. So you may have bought it for $50,000 15 years ago. It's not worth that now, especially with energy efficiencies that have come into the marketplace. So this isn't a bad news story. It's just to help you be prepared and be realistic when you do go to sell. Okay, what do I need if I want to sell my business? One, you need to make sure you start collecting from your bookkeeper, your accountant, your balance sheet, income statement, profit and loss statements, cash flow statement, and your income tax statements. Yes, potential buyers will demand to see these documents. But it's so important when to share with the potential buyer. Only if they have signed a non-disclosure statement. That's minimum. Preferably you're working with an attorney, protecting your interests. You can also pre-screen potential buyers by asking, well, what are you looking to pay for a business? That's okay. Or what price range are you looking in? Because if they're looking to buy a business for $50,000 and yours is $250, don't waste your time. Do you have an attorney who's available to handle the sale? That's a must also. How do I find buyers? Okay, ask yourself first, would any of my employees maybe be interested in buying this? Biz Buy Sell, I have it wrong, sorry. It's a nationwide platform where you can sell a business for a fee, of course. And that goes out all over the country. You can also engage a business broker, but from my experience, you will pay at least $25,000 to that broker to do the deal and find a buyer for you. Do you think any of your customers would be interested in purchasing and owning their own business? Are you on friendly terms with nearby competitors? That seems kind of like a scary proposition, but there could be somebody in Santa Fe that wants a Los Alamos presence. Or you can think vertical integration. Who am I supplying? Or a competitor who might want to branch into the area that you're specializing in. Let's see. Oh, and last tip, please go slowly. You don't want to rush into this. Don't talk to your friends about, I'm thinking about retiring in 5 years. I think I might sell the business. Don't share that information until you have your ducks in a row and you are ready. I hope that makes sense. That's most of the tips that I have gathered from my research working in this area. Does that make sense, or anyone have any questions? Yes, ma'am.
I'm just going to say this is really helpful for me because I have been exposed to people who are talking about selling their business, or they have wanted to and then they don't, and that kind of thing. And I didn't get anywhere near this amount of information, so I really like what's included in this. So if the slide presentation is helpful, her notes are all in that slide presentation for those of you who've got one at the table.
Thank you, Beverly. Yeah, please take whatever materials are on the table that would be helpful to you. I think we may have mentioned this will be available in the library business portal for viewing again. I kind of raced through that, but basically it's just, you have to think when you're selling your business, you have to think like a buyer, okay? When I look at your financial statements, I'm gonna see that you have to pay 10 grand a year to maintain that 25-year-old piece of equipment. So I'm gonna see everything. So it's really important to maintain your integrity too. Be honest with buyers. And employees, there are attorneys that will help you go through an employee purchase process. So don't overlook that opportunity. If you do decide to finance a sale of your business, like you're the banker and they pay X amount, please make sure that legal work is ironclad, because that is very high risk. If you're going to finance, you should get your asking price at a minimum. for that, so,
And probably get money up front, huh?
oh, definitely.
Kind of like if you financed a house, you'd take a down payment that was pretty substantial, and then the title would remain with you.
Correct. And a lot of times, those deals are structured where someone starts out, they put down a substantial amount, $50,000 of the $250,000 price. Then they make a balloon payment, 6 months, another 6 months. But like I said, it's risky. It's much better if you have a buyer who can just go and get a loan to buy your business. But you have to keep in mind also, when they go for financing, the banker will want to see all of the documentation. That banker's going to have to be convinced it's a good investment also. So, yeah. Yes.
Somebody else, I do want to say that when I was working with a client recently, it was in a meeting, in a public meeting that there was with the whole staff, and it came to light that it does take 3 years to get the business ready.
Yeah.
So there is a lot to do. And again, it's sort of like the example I said about your house. You don't want to wait and do all the maintenance at the very last second.
Yes. That, I've never thought about it that way, but it's so spot on. Because you don't want to walk into a business where things are all helter-skelter. It has to be turnkey. Here's this, here's this, here's this, and here are the revenue streams. Here are the methods we've done for marketing that have been successful. It has to be easy for your buyer. Then you also get a higher price. If you look like this is an opportunity I can't afford to pass up, that's when your sale's going to happen.
That's right.
Any other comments or suggestions? Yes, Stella?
One option that hasn't really been addressed here, and maybe it's because most people here are like sole proprietors, but if you have an entity business that's like a corporation or a partnership or an LLC, and you have partners in that business, a good succession plan is when you're standing that business up, to have some sort of a buy-sell agreement or a shareholder buyout agreement. That agreement can already have the price and the terms of the purchase set in place, and so then when that event happens, a lot of times they're reciprocal, so if someone wants to leave, you can buy me out or I'll buy you out, and there's a little bit of negotiation, but it makes it smooth.
That's an excellent
Pass it on to
point.
the next partner.
Thank you, Stella. Yeah, and a lot of times, a lot of times we address that in the operating agreement when we form the business with partners, not a partnership, but an LLC. That should all be spelled out in the operating agreement if you have multiple owners. Thank you. Oh, yes, sir. Kevin.
Kevin, so as a banker, I often get calls saying, hey, I need help buying this company. And some have been tremendously successful and some have just been failures, honestly. It is one thing that I saw many years ago is this company, they were planning. It was their it was their but succession, and they found but the next owner. So they structured her salary for the next, I think it was 5 years, as to where part of her salary came back to the owner, but then as a down payment. And I thought that was very creative. So there on day one, when you turn the key over, they don't have to write a check. It's for $50,000. They kind of already have that cushion there is at that time. So kind of goes along as with planning, finding those right, but the individuals get their buy-in, get their vision. And it makes it just a lot easier than, hey, I want to buy a company, it's for like $1 million, and their assets are $500,000, and by the way, they have a good name, blah, blah, blah. Well, I hate to say this, but that good name goes away when Jillian goes away.
Oh, yeah.
So if Kevin bought Flowers by Jillian, it wouldn't be Jillian, it'd be Kevin, and it's a different business. It's a completely,
Totally.
yes, is we both
You're right.
sell is the same thing. we're different folks.
Oh, yeah, no,
So-
totally.
Thank you for that point, that's very important. The other thing that can help seal the deal is if you, the seller, say, I commit to being in the business for 1 year after sale, X work schedule. Not, be specific though, I would say. That has to be laid out very specifically in the sell agreement. John, did you have a question?
I had a question
For comment?
for Beverly. My family business, we have ranches and we have gravel.
Yes.
And they're very, very sizable assets. And so my question to you is, how do I approach my family? I'm the oldest sibling. I'm the only one who's a businessman. My sister's husband owns a private jet company in Vegas. She's never coming back. My brother's an architect. He's not a businessman at all. And so I'm ultimately, everybody, it's the unsaid thing, I'm ultimately going to be the one that's in charge of managing these assets. How do you recommend approaching conversations in family businesses? With, there's trusts and stuff set up for the actual assets,
Yeah.
but the actual running of the business is not sorted out. How would you recommend I approach a conversation like that?
And a conversation with them about what specifically?
Running, giving up a proper succession plan for the businesses in writing, who's gonna run it, what.
Got it.
It will obviously, me and my two siblings will have a say-so.
Yes.
Everybody will be, we form a small board.
Yep.
But it's kind of something that's scary. My dad is in his 80s, he's out on the ranch all the time, something could happen anytime.
Yeah, yeah.
The gravel pit's pretty self-sustainable, we've got a group in there now, mining, but I don't know what to do other than at some point, I'm mentally preparing for it, because I know it's gonna all fall in my lap,
Yes.
but I would rather have a plan. And so my mom specifically gets weird, because no one else is a businessman in my family, they're netbooks. And
Right.
I make my own thing in
Yep.
business, and so I don't know.
I have a response to you. I'm quite clear on it, okay? So if I were you and I were in your position, what I would do, and I'll tell you this right now, is I would sit down with someone. I can do this as a coach. This would be the initial recommendation to you. That you sit down and you have a conversation with me and we map it out and I sign a non-disclosure agreement with you saying that is between you and I. And the purpose of that would be that you can put all of your thoughts and concerns out on paper and we map it out and say, what are you concerned about? Who are the people in the picture you want to have a conversation with? Your mother, your father, your siblings, your wife, your da-da-da-da-da, and all this, children. And you look at what's missing in all of it, there will be a lot because you're just getting started on it, right? It doesn't take a long time to do it. It takes more than one session, but it would take, probably 2 or 3, something like that. And we would sit down and get all of your thoughts and concerns and desires and visions out on paper, and I would type up these notes for you just impeccably, and then you would have this as a roadmap, and then you would probably need to engage attorneys, okay? Maybe trust kind of people, the people that have already set up in trust, you've already got that. And then I would just be sort of a traffic cop and say, you need to talk to your trust people about this. You need to talk to an attorney about this. You need to set up a meeting with your family when you're ready, because you don't want to go in half-cocked. You want to go in with a full plan in your mind, and you're calm, and you're a leader, and you've got your ducks in a row.
So
Does
when
that
their
make
ducks go, blah, you can hand them a piece of paper and say, I'll talk to you in 6 weeks.
Well, and Beverly, would it help if he shared with his family, this plan is similar
Yeah.
to a will or a living will? It's an essential thing we have to have in place.
Oh, absolutely. In fact, I would give you verbiage for all of it, to the point of role-playing, but you, I'm sure, don't need that. But I would plant for you all the things that you could posit to them, okay, in such a way that it's non-confrontational, it's safe for them. It helps you open up those discussions. You know what I'm saying? And gives you confidence in doing it. That's what coaching is really about. I'm so glad you asked that question because that's a powerful example of coaching.
It is. Thank you, John. Any other questions or suggestions or comments from the group? Yes, sir, David.
So this is a little bit, it's not my experience, but it's a good friend's experience. Reminds me that they have a family cottage, and it's a large family. There's like 6 siblings, and only one of them is kind of a retired attorney. So he's he's thinking about all the contingencies.
Yeah.
You know, what if this happens? What if that happens? And everybody's like, oh, that's never going to happen. You know, we're always going to be a wonderful family. We're all going to, right? But let's not talk about that. Let's just talk about what a wonderful family we are. And the way he approached it, and I thought it was very wise, is let's not talk about money. Let's not talk about what's your attachment to it? You know, do you care about this family asset, you know, history, whatever? And I thought that was a very helpful way to try to get around some of those hard, you know, is this important to you, or is it, you know, maybe your brother or sister who's an architect is like, I just, you know, I don't want to have anything to do with this, maybe give me a check, maybe not, but that's, you know, anyway, I thought that was an interesting approach.
I think that the complexity of my family situation is that there's multiple ranches, there's multiple properties, there's multiple everything, so there's,
Yeah.
and it's all, my parents didn't do anything in time to like take care of inheritance tax stuff completely. So now we're gonna have a tax burden when they both pass away. It's a bit of a mess, but we are where we are, so we've got a plan. We've got to figure out how we're gonna split assets, if we're gonna split them, or just own them all together and manage them all together. It's a big mess.
That also sounds like a good tax attorney could be
I was about to
Oh,
say.
yeah,
of
sure.
use.
We have a good one.
And a good planner.
Yeah, good tax.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's one thing. And the other thing is, it's very susceptible to being supercharged when you have family together in a room. There's a lot of emotional history to that and dynamics in a family, and you have to be able to navigate that. And you need definitely, at the end of the day, you need a really good attorney that you'll be able to engage where the family agrees on that person. But you have homework to do in the beginning. And in the beginning, it's about you getting real grounded and very, very clear on what your intention is and that it's good, and that you just ultimately want to bring people together with the least amount of conflict possible. And that's kind of the idea that I would drive from.
Thank you, Beverly.
That's really good.
And thank you for the question, John. We are over time, so we're going to say goodbye until next month. Thank you all for your attention and for attending today. I hope you found it useful. Please take any of the paper that we have on the tables. We can also provide something digitally if that would help you. And as we said, the video will be available at some point at the library. Thank you all.